This right here is my very first Leica, a Leica Q3. I have never shot with a Leica before, let alone owned one. And this is going to be my first impressions, having this for a week, from someone that predominantly shoots with, I'd say Sony cameras now, but I also have Nikon camera, I also have Panasonic cameras. So this is my first impressions of the Leica Q3 43. Now, I'm not here to convince you that you need a Leica. To be honest, I probably don't even need a Leica, and I'm going to be referring to my notes throughout this video as well. But this is what I do. I test cameras, I try them out, and I was very curious. You see a lot of people talk about Leicas and shoot with Leicas, and the images always look lovely, so why not try one out for myself? When you open the box of this thing, it's immediately evident that it is unlike any unboxing that you've probably done before. Just the way the box kind of opened up, it feels very much like opening an iPod, like the very first iPods that came out. They had that box that was perforated, just kind of like opened like a parcel. Very different experience. And from where I ordered mine from, a place in Montreal, they actually included a like customized, personalized note that was signed just to say thank you for your business as well. And even inside the packaging, they include this little card signed, which looks like actual like hand signatures by the people that inspected this camera before it left Germany, because all these are handmade as well. So it's a very different experience unboxing this compared to unboxing your Sony camera or Canon camera or anything like that. Even chatting with Cam, who went to the actual Leica store in LA, he was saying that they wouldn't let him touch the door. They offered him water and coffee as soon as he was in there. They showed him around all the different prints they had in the store there. So like, it's obvious that this is definitely a elevated kind of luxury experience purchase compared to the other cameras, which you kind of walk into Best Buy, pick up the camera and leave. All right, so throughout the video, you're going to see lots of photos. I'm not saying they're anything special. They're just to demonstrate kind of the characteristics of this lens and how it renders the images. And it is pretty impressive. There's some definite swirliness going on in the background there, depth of field, like the fall off. There is something very special about it, and I think I get it. Now, I love the Fuji X100 V1.6, whatever you want to call it, and that was my most similar camera to this, but that's now sold. Had this for a few days, immediately realized I don't need that camera as well. I really enjoyed the size of that, the fact that you can use it as a point and shoot if you want. We're going to get some wind in here, hopefully that doesn't interfere too much. And that is one of the big appeals for me with this camera, the size, the compactness of it. But this is quite a bit bigger with the lens, kind of like how the Fuji X100 would be with the wide angle lens attachment on there. I'm gonna need that wind thing. Where are we standing? Kind of like here. So this feels very different in the hands compared to any other camera that's out there. It's one of those things that just kind of makes you inspired to go and shoot with it. And there's been a few times on the mornings that we have right now on the way into work where the mornings are super hazy, super misty. You get the steam coming off of the water because it's warmer than the air is. It's like that really nice end of summer going into fall temperature. The trees are starting to change, and I found myself going a different route to work to try and find things to take photos of on the way in, because I just want to go out and shoot with this. That is like the first kind of impressions I had with this. I want to shoot with it. It inspires me to go and take photos with it. This is obviously handmade and extremely high quality compared to any other camera that I've ever used. Everything everyone talks about in terms of like the Leica build quality, it's exactly what they say. The on-off switch is so like firm and tactile. When I first turned it on, it felt like I was going to break it. I had to turn the dial that much, but now you get used to it. It's obviously easy, but everything is extremely clicky and just feels smooth, and all the edges are like perfectly like not sharp. They're all like smooth. The tactileness, the clickiness of all the dials and the buttons, it's perfect really. Even the little switch on the bottom here, just the way that you can probably hear it here, it's extremely well done. On the back of the camera here, there's a little indentation for your thumb, and it is just perfectly beveled. I don't know what the word is for that. Your thumb just sits in it ever so perfectly, and it's little design features like that that really make you appreciate this. Now, I picked up this third-party copy thumb grip from Amazon. It's half the price of the actual one. It's even got like the copy of the Leica camera embossed inside that, but this is I'll link it below for you. If you're looking at grabbing one of these, you don't want to spend the full price, get this one. It's really nice. It even has the buttons on there which allow you to push the 2 buttons on the back of the camera as well. If you don't love the little indentation there, or it's not enough for you, this gives you more of like a firm grip on the camera, and I'd be happy using this without a strap. This is actually the strap that comes with the camera as well. It is a mediumly length leather one. When I saw the pictures of this, the grey leatherette, compared to the black, I mean, I still, even now, I'd say I probably prefer the black, but the grey looks much better in person than it does in the pictures. It's kind of darker in person than the pictures make it look. I'd say the pictures make it look a little bit cheap, but it's much better in person when you get it in your hands. And it feels really good as well. Now, I do know that you can send this to Leica. You can go to a Leica store and you can get this changed out to black or to a different color if you want to, but I also understand that there is a pretty lengthy time frame involved in doing that. We'll see what I end up doing in the long run. One of the first things I wrote down in my notes here was the battery life, because it's not great. After shooting for a couple of hours with it, I noticed that it was dropping really fast, and I immediately had to go on and buy a battery. And you guessed it, $10,000 Canadian camera, battery is $300. So batteries are expensive, and you're definitely going to need a second one. Now, if you like to use any form of a filter on here, I've got the Polar Pro Short Stash Everyday on here, the quarter one, and you can still use your lens hood, and I do really like the lens hood on this, but it doesn't screw on all the way, and there's a little tiny gap in there. Now, I have gone on and ordered a Hogue lens hood, which apparently allows you to still use filters and not have that little gap on there, but that's something to be aware of if you'd like to use filters with the 43mm lens here. You can, it's just the lens hood doesn't screw on all the way, and that gap doesn't look very nice. The EVF on this really surprised me. With small compact cameras, especially with like the X100 which does have the optical viewfinder as well as the EVF, so that technically is an advantage, but the EVF was really small in that and just not the most pleasing thing in the world to shoot through. This is not like that. This reminds me of shooting with like my A7R5. It's a much bigger EVF, much more enjoyable experience to look through, and overall, just for a compact camera this size, the EVF feels like it shouldn't be on this camera. The screen, when I was looking at the pixels of it, isn't the highest. Like, I would have honestly thought that they'd put a kind of a higher res screen in it, more like a Canon screen, which are typically the highest res in all the cameras that are out there, but it actually looks really nice. So they've obviously used a very high quality screen, just that has less pixels in it. Brightness, everything like that, everything looks really, really good on the back of the screen, even when you're composing photos. I haven't really had a need to use the screen kind of flipping up yet, but the hinge on there, everything feels really, like you can even hear it, the tactileness of it. It's not the easiest to grip, I will say that, but it's also kind of flush to the body. So yeah, it's good. I don't know if I'll use it. I like using the EVF that much. I also will say that the black on here, everything about this camera is a dust magnet. The finish just seems to attract fingerprints and dust, and I find myself constantly cleaning it because it is something you obviously want to look nice as well. So be wary of that. The lens, everything, every crevice on here has dust on it. Pretty obviously as well, because dust is typically white or gray or whatever, and the camera's black, so it stands out. How I've been using this for all the photos that you've seen I've featured throughout this video, I've actually been using it on auto ISO and auto shutter speed, and just using the dial here for my compensation. So I just overexpose or underexpose and the camera picks the right settings. For me, it keeps the ISO at 100 and adjusts the shutter speed essentially. So it's just a really simple way to use this camera as essentially a glorified point and shoot, which sounds ridiculous, but for the styles of shots that I was taking, it worked perfectly fine. And Leica versus Fuji seems to be a big comparison that people look at. And one of the biggest things that I hear people say that try a Leica coming from a Fuji is they don't like that you don't have film simulations, they don't like that you can't customize any of the looks. And I really love my GFX50R for the straight out of the camera JPEGs with the film simulations, which you can customize a little bit with the recipes. So I was a little skeptical of that with this, but this has what are called Leica looks, and in the phone app, which you can download the Leica looks directly to the camera from, they don't come on the camera as standard, and you can't put all of them on there. You can put all of them -1, and then it fills up, so you don't get to have them all for whatever reason. The new one, the Chrome one, is beautiful, and I love the JPEGs straight out of the camera with it, which I'm very surprised about, and I didn't think I would, but I do. Shooting with a custom white balance at 7200 on a warm sunny day, like, I don't know, you tell me what you think of the images, but to me they look really good. So all the images that I've been shooting with this have been in that chrome Leica look, which I downloaded from the phone at 7200, at my white balance of 7200, or there was a couple in the classic as well, but I do find the classic a little bit too contrasty. The blacks seem to have been, they're really crushed, which you can fix obviously if you're shooting in RAW, which I do as well, but I am a big straight out the camera JPEG person. Now, the Leica Photos app, I have used all of the different manufacturers' apps out there, and they're all way better than they used to be, but this one by far is the absolute best, like hands down. So they've done all the engineering and made this beautiful camera, and the experience is phenomenal to shoot with it, but even the app itself is fantastic. This can be off in my bag. I can load up the Leica Photos app, connect to my camera, it'll wake it up, doesn't turn it on, it just kind of wakes it up, so you can download the photos, and it's just flawless. And so fast to transfer the JPEGs as well. I did 1.2 gigabytes of JPEGs, and it transferred them all in under a minute. And that's wirelessly, so through Wi-Fi. So whatever Wi-Fi chip is in here is fast. Really, really refreshing to actually have an app that works that well and be able to transfer that large amount of data quickly. I do like to shoot manual focus occasionally. I like the tactileness of it, how you feel more engaged with the image. And the little switch on here, to be honest with you, to begin with, was kind of hard to wrap my head around, like, to use, because it's very different. It's not a switch per se, it's more like this little button that you have to push and hold, and then it engages the manual focus. But now I've got it down as muscle memory. It feels beautiful, and this focus ring on here is by far the smoothest of any camera that I've ever tried out there ever. Like, you really have to feel it in your hands to just kind of feel how smooth it is. There's like no noise. It's really hard to explain, but it's a beautiful experience shooting or manually focusing. And when you change it to manual focus and you look through the EVF, the manual focus assist, like it zooms in to what you're focusing on. It's the perfect time that it engages, and then when you just tap the shutter, it disappears. Like, it's immediate. It's exactly what manual focus assist should be. And it just feels like it's more finished and polished than when I shoot like manual focus with my Sony cameras. Maybe because of the dampening on here and how smooth this is, and it just, I don't know, it's a great experience. All right, the big thing, obviously, how are the pictures? And why do people like that Leica look? And what is that Leica look? Well, there's a lot of different theories on this and what it is that makes the image stand out, but specifically with this, the 43 APO lens. I didn't fully understand it, and I did a lot of research. What makes this so special, what gives it that pop, is a lot down to the sharpness that this lens produces across the whole frame, corner to corner. Like, it's sharp, ridiculously sharp, to the point where the crops are just, we'll talk about the crops in a second, but like, it's so sharp, and that's what gives it some of that pop. Now, the way that they're able to do that is with this lens, from my understanding here, the way the colors all meet, the red, green, blue spectrum, they all meet at exactly the same point, and that produces this ridiculously sharp image. When you're taking it, they all meet exactly the same point, and that's why it's so sharp. With other lenses, cheaper lenses, all the colors don't always meet at exactly the same point, and that's where you get that's where you start to get issues, color fringing, that kind of thing. So that is essentially why the images look the way they do, and they look as sharp as they do. And people have already been comparing this lens to a lens that you can buy from Leica on its own, and saying that this is sharper, and that lens is, what, like $6,000. So it's the same body, Q3, but you're getting the lens that is essentially a way higher price lens. So you could technically look at it as a deal if you wanted to, an expensive deal at that, but that's one way to look at it. And I'm gonna learn more about this and play about with it more and gather more thoughts throughout. This is just the first impressions, but from my understanding and from what I've seen and the way the images look, that's the best way I can explain it. All right, the crop, that's the other thing that Leica users, I guess, boast this is the thing that they have, and they do get more crops, but the way it's talked about is like it doesn't already exist on other cameras. Sony cameras have full frame mode, they have Super 35 APS-C mode, so you get a bit of a crop there, and that's essentially the same thing. But with this, you can crop in 43mm, and then a 60, 75, a 90, a 120, and a 150. And because you've got 60 megapixels in here, you can get all the way into like the furthest cropped in image, which I think is like a 150mm equivalent from the original 43mm. and it's still sharp and it's still completely usable, printable for social media. The one thing I don't like is the way that it's implemented. It's just a little box. And whether you're using the back of the screen or you're looking through the EVF, you still see the full frame here. Like we see this whole frame here. I'll try and demo it on the screen here. But then when you crop in once, you just get this white box. So you have to like visually figure out what's going to be inside that box. You crop in again, the box gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's how it works. I would love to just see us be able to see what's inside that frame so you can visually compose a little bit better. Maybe I'll get used to it, but that's just a gripe I have right now. I think that's it for now. That's everything I have in my notes. First impressions, more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.